Hello, everybody. This is the MLBeers podcast with your hosts, Andrew Sherman and Phillip Corwin. Phillip, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just got out of class and ready to talk about baseball.
Well, that's always a good thing.
Of course. And I mean, it's accounting, so it's better to get out of that class too. So.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to get to watch I haven't watched a single Royals game this season yet. So finally got my cable hooked up. So I'm going to watch the first game tonight.
Nice. I've been watching a little bit of Royals baseball, Cardinals baseball. Not that great of play from both teams, but
oh no, it's been bad. But it's still young. There's only 8 games played so far.
8 or 7, depending on who you're following. That's why I was thinking of drinking Show Me Sour by Boulevard.
Oh, did you pick that up?
I did pick that up. I haven't tried it out yet, but I was thinking of trying it today for the podcast because both teams are really playing sour, I guess. So, anyway, on to the headlines today. I don't think we really spoke about doing headlines this week. I know that last week, I guess God forsaken us, that Tim Tebow hits a freaking home run at his first at bat in Double-A or Single-A, wherever he is.
He's in Single-A, and then he also hit another home run too. So he has 2 home runs right now.
See, exactly. We can't. We're done with the Tebow train, but some people aren't for some odd reason. I think he's just gonna falter and flounder back right into the SEC network and talk about football. But that's just me. I guess the other thing we should have you seen? There's other things too. Have you seen the new outfits for the All-Star game? They just released them yesterday.
No, I did not. Let me look at them.
Very, very...
Do they look bad?
I mean, it's in Miami, so we're going to get some fluorescent-looking colors, highlighter colors. That nice bright orange, that really, I guess, Miami light blue, which is really different from powder blue in a way.
At least they're going to... Yeah, that's... That's something else. But it makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, what's really odd is that next year will be in Washington D.C. for the Nationals, and I thought they were going to play in Seattle because my brother last night, I probably watched one full game, and then caught glimpses of other games in the process. And I was watching the Seattle Mariners-Houston game, which it was close until the 7th when Seattle just gave up 4 runs, 4 hits in the 7th, and Houston won. But my brother thought they were having the All-Star game there, but because he saw something on the sidelines, but he saw the opening day paint in the foul line. What else? Oh, another big thing. I'm a fan of Japanese baseball, not a super fan, but I do kind of pay attention to it from time to time. And 60 Minutes, the news magazine show on CBS, one of the guys from Sports Illustrated, I can't remember his name, actually got to do a story about Shohei Ohtani, the Japanese Babe Ruth. And it was really interesting how he reacted to some of the questions. Of course, they were all softball questions, and he can say whatever. But I thought it was just really interesting that now, since after the new CBA rules have came out, after the Cubs winning the World Series, after a lot of things have happened, now it's this somewhat focus has been shifted towards this 22-year-old right-handed pitcher, left-handed hitting power player And it was just fun. It was just interesting to see.
Oh yeah, and didn't he go on the DL after that though?
He went on the DL during the off season for
Oh,
ankle
okay.
problems. He if I remember correctly, that he was on the DL right before the WBC started, which was a pain in the butt. But I mean, it's you can't really do anything about it. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is just it's very unavoidable, and probably it's a good thing for him not to be in the WBC with that ankle injury. So, was there anything else this week that really caught your eye news wise that wasn't baseball game related?
No, not really. Oh well, I was gonna say Jeremy Guthrie's terrible outing. Will Myers hit for the cycle. So we got a couple into the spectrum there, but nothing baseball related.
Nothing baseball related.
No.
There is an article that I will talk about later, which I did show you yesterday or the day before about the Braves and beer. But anyways, to give you the rundown of what's going on today, we are going to start our journey into the baseball season officially. We're going to have our first segment of the day will be the good, bad, and the surprising, where we look at teams that we thought that were outstanding for the week, that was just purely horrible for the week, and then a team or teams that really took you by surprise, either by winning, like a really bad team winning a lot, like the Cincinnati Reds, or or let's just say the Seattle Mariners, not Cincinnati Mariners, but the Seattle Mariners, where they were supposed to come out, be good and stuff, but then just falter through the ranks throughout the week. And then we'll be talking about divisions, and we're going to be talking about the AL and NL East. And Philip will lead the AL conversation while I'll lead the NL conversation. And of course, we're going to be talking about our beers and the lovely second game of the MLBeers historical showdown, where the fans face the hosts for bragging rights. So, Phil, to start our new segment, I'm going to let you go first. So, who's the good? Who was the best team that you thought this week was?
The good right now is actually the Los Angeles Angels.
Okay.
I would say Los Angeles of Anaheim High or something, whatever their
the
full name is.
The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Yeah, that's what got me mixed up.
That disgusting name. They should just be the Anaheim Angels or the California Angels. But anyway, keep on going.
Right now they're 6-2, and I'm going to read stats, but these stats are from last night. So if they happen to play last night and Fangraphs and Baseball Reference wasn't updated, so they might be a little behind by a day, but
that's
I didn't want to get up
fine.
early enough to correct them.
That's perfectly fine. So anyway,
right now they're as a team they're hitting a 291 average, 35 RBIs, 352 on base, 439 slugging, 791 OPS, and a 128 OPS plus. All of those stats are AL league leading right now.
Really?
Yeah. And the left side of their infield with Simmons and Escobar, they're both hitting over 400.
Okay.
But
okay.
You're getting uncharacteristic batting from the left side of their infield, and Mike Trout is doing Mike Trout things. He's leading the team in RBIs and home runs, but the problem is Albert Pujols.
And why is
right
that?
now? And he has 13 plate appearances, and he's hitting. Oh man, let me bring it back up.
13 plate appearances, and he's supposed to be the everyday DH.
Yeah. So, you can kind of see what's going on there.
Yeah,
But
that just sounds bad from Pujols when he's only 7 or 8 swings away from hitting 600 in the home runs. But
he'll hopefully he can get there. But what else is going on with him? While I correct my Pujols stuff, their rotation though has had really bad starts. Between Skaggs and Shoemaker,
hmm
they each of them have ERAs I think over 5 right now in
hmm
their 2 starts. And then if this would scroll, yeah, Pujols. I'm sorry, he has. I don't know why Fangraphs does not. I don't like that. I don't want to use Baseball Reference. They for some reason Fangraphs only had him at 13 plate appearances, but that's not right. He's at 35 plate appearances, 8 games, and he's hitting a 219.
219. That is not good for a DH. I expect it when I think of DH.
Yeah.
I expect him to hit 280 because 270, like 216 to 270, is supposed to be your average. But they're the DH. They're designated hitters. They're only there to hit. But if they can't reach that 280 mark, then why the hell are they in the everyday lineup?
Right. Well, you got to look who's on their bench. They got Jeffrey Marte, Ben Rivera, Carlos Perez, or Cliff Pennington.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
And it kind of makes sense why the Angels aren't going to be the good team for long.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have a good bullpen. Their closer right now has 2 saves and no earned runs.
That's good. That is good.
Yeah, and just looking at their bullpen too, they have one. They have 2 guys with 3+ innings and no earned runs in 3 games, but they do got J.C. Ramirez and Blake Parker, who have each let up 2 runs. So I guess the bullpen's getting the job done. So if Pujols can step up and the rest of the players stay where they're at, they might be able to maintain it.
Exactly. And my question is, why do you think, besides stats, why do you think that the Angels are this really good team? Because they faced, if I remember correctly, they faced Seattle. They faced Oakland. If I'm correct on these on the schedules, and they just faced Texas. 2 of the 3 teams that are supposed to be bound for the playoffs, and they're beating them. Especially with last night, the Angels beating the Rangers on a walk-off squeeze play in the 10th.
Yeah, and that's they're in the midst of a 4-game winning streak after last night. They split the series to Oakland. They swept the Mariners, and they started this series off with a win. So, they're coming out of the gate hot. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but hopefully they cool off by the time they get to Kansas City this weekend.
Well, I would say speaking of Kansas City, but let's just stick with the program here. If we could banter about Kansas City and banter about the Cardinals all day. So, for my team, if it's okay for me to step in,
yes.
The good or the best team that I thought that was outstanding this week was the Arizona Diamondbacks. And for this past week, they were 6-2 yesterday, but officially 7-2 through Fangraphs. They won the 4-game series against the Giants 3-1, and they just defeated swept the AL champions Cleveland Indians. And the reason why I chose these guys is because, first of all, I thought they were just going to be subpar. And they beat the Giants, which the Giants, if you watch and look at some of the games, the Giants really didn't help themselves out by having lower than substantial I guess I would say lower than substantial relieving pitching wise. Their relievers are horrible. And it was shown during that game. Then oh yeah, they were playing the Giants again. That's the reason why they're 7-2. They just started that series. But anyways, besides that, you have to look at the individuals of the team. You have Paul Goldschmidt that is hitting a 303. Then you have Jake Lamb hitting 286. A.J. Pollock, yeah, he is a bit underneath with a 243. But then you have guys like Yasmani Tomas that's hitting a 345, and Chris Owings hitting a 333. But saying that really doesn't. Oh, and I forgot Brandon Drury, which he has been, for some odd reason, to me, really surprising because he's not usually your average guys. But even though I am talking about average, you have to look at the batting average when ball's in play. And you go back to Goldschmidt, 348, Jake Lamb, 400, Chris Owings, 417, Yasmani Tomas, 474, Brandon Drury, 435. And some of these guys can rake. 2 home runs from Schmidt, from Lamb. Then we have 2 home runs from David Peralta, which isn't much because he is literally just above the Mendoza line, which if you don't know what the Mendoza line is .180.
And the good thing about Diamondbacks, Jake Lamb, he's hitting in a position where he's able to have 10 RBIs in just 8 games. 9 games, sorry.
Exactly. And actually the one thing that's kind of making me mad at the moment is I'm looking at FanGraphs, and I'm just looking at like the basics of the batting leaders, and the one thing that's really makes me mad is it doesn't show RBIs, which could be who's really the leading contributor of that team. So anyway, I guess now to the pitching part of the team. And, Robbie Ray, I had him down as the worst player on the team. He had he was going in with a 4.76 ERA and FIP but his strikeouts were 9.53 per 9. His walks were 4.76 per 9. 65.2 left on base percentage. But then again, we're looking at a small sample size. And, now looking back at his stats, and I could make him as the best player on the team that's, against Paul Goldschmidt. If you look at it right now, he has a 2.19 ERA. His fielding independent pitching rating is a 3.69. His left on base percentage, your favorite stat, is an 88.2. His and it doesn't really give you the per nines, but if you look at his K rate, it's a 27.5. His walk rate's a 15.7. So it's really going up there. And then you have the surprise man, Zach Greinke, which he's currently has a 2.31 ERA, a 2.87 fielding independent pitching rating, would be rating. Then he has an 83.3% left on base percentage. And then if you look at the BABIPs, the pitcher's version of the batting average when ball's in play, you have Robbie Ray giving a 2.214 and Zach Greinke giving a 250. So I mean that's the reason why I like the Diamondbacks. And also doesn't
Greinke right now has a 1.5 base on ball per 9.
See,
so he's only striking out about 7 guys per 9 innings, but he's not walking a lot either.
And that's a really good thing from, last year where he was really floundering throughout the season. So that's the teams that we thought were the best of the week. What was your team that was just purely bad, just an ugly team, Phil?
And this isn't coming from a Royals standpoint, but I went with the Cardinals.
Okay.
If you look at their record right now, they are 2-6. They are, as a team, only hitting 216 average.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 307 slugging, a 307 on base, a 614 OPS, and only 71 OPS plus.
Mm-hmm.
And they're third worst in the NL on batting average, second worst in OPS plus, second worst in OPS, worst in slugging, third worst in on base percentage, and third worst in RBI. So overall, you can just look at it from a basic standpoint. Is the team isn't hitting? They don't have a single hitter that's getting everyday playing time, hitting over 300. The closest they got to that is Molina with a 292.
Mm-hmm.
But their next best batting average is Diaz with a 278, but he is the bright spot. He leads the team in home runs and RBIs with 3 home runs and 5 RBIs.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing that just that plays with my heart with Diaz is just like he's becoming another Daniel Murphy, where he actually can hit the ball, rake, if you will, and just for some odd reason has difficulty playing defense. And I know shortstop is a difficult position, but man, he makes those easy plays look very, very difficult, and it doesn't seem like he gets the jump on the ball. And I'm going to stop there with my Cardinals
if you look at
banter, because I'm just going to keep on going if I do.
And, if you look at Randall Gittrich and Dexter Fowler, those two guys combined have 21 strikeouts. And then if we move on to their pitching, you have the bright spot of Carlos Martinez.
Yeah.
He's done well for you. 12 innings, 3.65 ERA, 13 strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
But then you move on to Lance Lynn, who looks like he had a terrible outing, and in 2 games has let up 8 runs, 6 earned. And then Adam Wainwright has not only pitched 9 innings, and he's let up 8 runs and 7 earned runs.
Mm-hmm.
But then you turn around and have Mike Leake, who has pitched 1 game for you, has 8 innings and only let up 6 hits and 1 run.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Wacha, 6 innings, 1.5 ERA. But when you have 2 guys at the top of your rotation letting up about 16 runs to start off the season, it's asking a lot for your bullpen. And you can tell in the bullpen numbers that they're suffering. Like, he has a 12.27 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have a single reliever who's had a save this season.
Yeah, and I think the only bright spot out of that, relief is, I'm pretty sure it's Segras that has done real well for them, or Sokolovich. I can't remember. Too many S's.
Yes, he's done well. Yeah, no, that's who you're talking about, because he has a 1.80 ERA with 5 inning pitch. He's only let up 7 hits, and he's let up 2 runs, but only 1 of those was earned.
Yeah, I was just like, I couldn't remember if it was Segras or Sokolovich.
And I kind of forgot that you guys and that the Cardinals have Jonathan Broxton still pitching for him.
Yeah. As you can tell by my answer right there, it's not the best out of him at all.
No, but I don't want to weigh too heavy on them. Hopefully, their offense will pick back up. It's the basic things in baseball. You got to hit the ball to score, and they're not doing that. So
yeah, we've lost the fundamentals lately for some odd reason, but don't ask me about that. So anything else about the Cardinals that I don't know that that I don't know or that I can't banter about because I can't save them.
No, there's really not. No, just by looking just at their basic stats, and we kind of went through everybody. They have their whole outfield hitting below 200 right now. They don't have a single guy hitting over 300. So that's just not conducive to win a ball game.
Exactly. So anyway, for my bad team, my worst team of the week had to be the Seattle Mariners. They were, as in my notes, they were 2-6 through the week, but they are 2-7 now with a loss from last night against the Houston Astros. But when I look at this team, it was really the bright spot from it was Jean Segura, where he was hitting a 333, 375, 433 slash line. But I know there's the updated version, and I don't think he is back. No, he still has that. He's still 313, 353, and 406.
And my baseball reference is showing that, in parentheses, he's on the 10-day DL.
Yes, I think he was just sent to that the other day, I believe. I think on Monday. I know it was just recently, though, because if you look at the plate appearances, and I'm using Fangraphs, he has 35. He has
35.
So it was just Monday. Yeah. But anyway, he's like...
He's at 8 games. Everyone else is at 9. So,
But see, if you look at it, he's really the only bright spot out of this whole lineup, because he's the only one that is above 300, but he's also the only one that is remotely close of being good, like average-wise. Mitch Haniger, he's at 257.
I was going to say,
which
he has 3 home runs, though.
Yeah, 3 home runs, yeah. I mean, it's like I said last week with home runs, it's kind of like with golf. You drive for show, but putt for dough. 3 home runs can help you in certain situations, but look again at their win-loss record, 2-7. So home runs are nice, but they aren't going to win you games unless it's bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, need a runner in scoring position, all the cliche stuff. But besides that, you also have to look at their pitching. Not that great outside of
James Paxton.
James Paxton. You do have Ishashi Iwakuma, which it does take a mouthful and a second to really process that whole thing. And then that's it. I mean, Felix Hernandez, he's throwing a 4.09 ERA. His fielding independent pitching is a 4.32. You're just not seeing a lot of these guys, going out there. But when you look at it too, these guys shouldn't be 2-7. They should at least be 500. But it doesn't help that they did lose to the Angels in the bottom of the ninth. They were up by 8, and they lost to them.
Yeah, that's a tough way to lose.
Up by 8. Yeah. Houston, to reiterate, they won one game against Houston, but should have swept the Angels, but the Angels swept them. So, and that's where it's going to be becoming more of an issue. And if they want to really, and of course I could say this with all teams that are subpar or just doing poorly at the moment, it's just everybody needs to start hitting. Everybody needs to start going. But that's not happening with this team because Nelson Cruz almost hit his first home run of the season last night. He still hasn't hit one. And Mitch Haniger...
The key word is almost.
Yeah, almost. He was probably 5 feet outside of the line for a home run. But anyway, it's just like okay, you have Mitch Haniger that's, has those 3 home runs. And again, it really makes me mad that they don't show the hitting, because really the hittings can really show you how it's all done. Hold on one second. Let's take a gander shower.
And they have a guy in their lineup, Leonos Martin. He has 33 plate appearances.
Mm-hmm.
He only has 3 hits and a 0.94 batting average.
See, that's just not gonna do it for anybody. And of course, Fangraphs with their new updates not gonna show me automatically how good their hitting is. But anyway, that's just how the Seattle Mariners have been. They've just been lacking the past couple of days with a lack of hitting, with a lack of I guess diversity with the pitching and the hitting, where it's not coming all together. It's just been sputtering is probably the best word to use in that situation. So that is my team, the Seattle Mariners, just being purely ugly from all of that. So who is your surprising team or teams?
I just went with one team, and it's going to be the Minnesota Twins, which I know they lost last night.
Yeah.
But that was only their second loss of the season. They started off the season with 4 wins in a row, sweeping the Royals. Then they took 2 of 3 from Chicago, and they only lost to Detroit by 1 run last night.
Yeah, and
so
right now they're down by 2 in the bottom of the 7th against Detroit, which I guess it's a plus side that Fangraphs does show you the current box score while looking at their team on Fangraphs. But anyway, keep on going.
Right now they have 3 guys hitting over 300, which is Miguel Sanu, Jordan Castro, and Jorge Polanco. Though Brian Dozier's yet to hit a home run, and he hit over 40 for him last season. So maybe it's a little, I guess, troubling, I guess you could say, that he is yet to really hit his stride. He struck out five times. It only is batting .214. And the Twins going out and getting Jason Castro from the Astros, which is turning, I don't know how well he can keep up a .353 batting average, but he only has 1 strikeout so far and 7 walks.
There you go.
So when have your catcher, for one, hitting like that, then you got your shortstop, your third baseman, all hitting their strides, and they each have at least 1 home run. Sanu has 2, and then they, looking at their pitching, they look like they've only gotten pretty much 1 bad start out of Mejia, Alberto.
Oh,
I don't know how to say his first name.
Alberto Mejia.
Alberto. There we go. Mejia. He gave them 1 bad start. He only gave them 1 2/3 innings, but he only let up 2 earned runs.
Well, I mean, that's good.
And then Kyle Gibson.
Other things, but keep on going.
It sounds like they stopped the bleeding early. And Irvin Santana right now with 13 innings only has a 0.69 ERA. He's only let up one earned run, which was a home run, and 4 hits and 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. So when he's the top of the rotation guy like that is performing like that, then you got Hector Santiago, pretty much same situation. 11 innings, 2.38 ERA, 7 hits, 3 runs, 1 home run, only 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. And then surprisingly, Phil Hughes in his 1 game in 6 innings has a 1.5 ERA, only let up 1 run, 5 hits in 6 innings, and 3 strikeouts, no walks.
Which is, really surprising for him. It seems like a lot of guys, because I chose them as one of my teams also, and it's just a surprise that out of the blue their pitching is coming all together. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure you brought up Irvin Santana with his .69 ERA at the moment, and it's just like, wow, how is this actually happening with the Minnesota Twins right in this time? And the one thing that I'm really curious about is that you talked about Sano, and then you talk about Dozier, and those were the guys. Besides, those were the guys that were gonna bring the team up. And one person that we forget to talk about because he's just doing so horribly is Brian Buxton. He's supposed to be. You have Sano, you have Dozier coming up through the ranks. Dozier earlier than Sano, but then Sano and Buxton were supposed to be really the two guys that were going to push the Twins over the white line and push them into contention with the playoffs. But they haven't. But Buxton hasn't, brought his game yet. Currently, like I said, he has a .0669 batting average, a purely 100, .1 on base percentage, and a .103 slugging. And it doesn't really help that your BABIP 2 is a 167, and that just really shows that he doesn't, he's not doing hot.
17 strikeouts and 13 plate appearances. He's striking out over half the time right now.
Exactly.
And has a -41 OPS plus.
I think the interesting stat that I have down is that Brian Buxton has a -61 weighted runs created plus.
Oh, awesome.
And the funny thing is, for people that don't know the stat of weighted runs created plus, is that the stat starts out at 100. And if you go above 100, you're good. If you're under, you're doing poorly. 100's the average. But I don't know how people get into the negatives. This is just ridiculous. I would just end it at 0. You're already there. You're not doing anything. It's purely -61. And I mean, I've looked at other teams too, and I mean, I think there was one guy from one of the teams that I was looking at that just was purely let's take a gander, shall we? I know he's in here somewhere. Ender Inciarte, just one guy real quick, -7. Then you have, come on. Oh yeah, Jose Reyes, -68 weighted runs created plus. So I mean,
Brian Buxton isn't the worst.
He isn't the worst, but he could do a lot better. And since he is supposed to be one of the poster children of the Minnesota, revamping the Minnesota Twins organization, he should be up there with Sano and Dozier, but he isn't. And that's where that's where I'm a little bit surprised with that. I mean, as an individual standpoint. But I was surprised that Minnesota throughout the week, blew out the Royals, blew out, let me take a gander real quick, blew out the White Sox, and now is finally having trouble against the Detroit Tigers. The Royals, I knew the White Sox wasn't going to be much of a problem. They're already in a rebuilding year. They were pretty much fighting for who's going to be in the cellar for the year. But with the Royals, where I expect them, to really charge out and, say never say die attitude before, they need to make one last run, get swept by the Minnesota Twins.
And the surprising thing about the Twins, their bullpen right now has 16 innings pitched with only 11 hits allowed and only let up 4 runs.
That is pretty damn good, if I say so. So, besides my team that I chose, besides the Minnesota Twins, I chose the Cincinnati Reds. And the reason why I chose the Reds, they beat the Phillies 2-1 in their series. Okay, they're pretty much even teams. But then they go into Busch Stadium, beat the Cardinals 2-1, and out of those 2 games, they shut them out in a 2-0 game and an 8-0 game. And what really, it just surprises me that this is happening. the best player that I thought of was Eugenio Suarez, and let me get up his numbers real quick. He's hitting a 375 batting average, 500 on-base percentage, and a 708 slugging, with his BABIP being a 389, and his ISO rating, which is, I guess, power plus, like slugging plus in a way, because it doesn't count singles. But anyway, is a 333, and normally your average is going to be 140, 150. But then it's just like, okay, his weighted runs created a 210. Then his walk and K rates, his walk rate is a 16.7%, while his K rate is a 13.3. He has 2 home runs. He can steal with 1, and he's just done well. Offensively, he's done well, I should say, but defensively, he, as done by WAR standards, he is a .1. But, looking down through this line real quick, and especially, you have to look at all the starters here. You have Billy Hamilton that's hitting a 323 batting average with a 345 BABIP. Then you have Adam Duvall, which is hitting a 367 average with a 421 BABIP. Then you have Zach Cozart, which he is currently hitting a 450 batting average and a 529 BABIP. And the one looking at this, the one surprising guy is Joey Votto. Really, he's there because he wants to build his stock up whenever he gets traded. That's just my opinion, not really what's going on. But they're just keeping him for, the future. But then you got to look at the pitching. Of course, you always have to look at the pitching. Scott Feldman, he was one of the guys that got the shutout against the Cardinals, the 8-0 shutout. And looking at it, he has a 253 ERA. His fielding independent pitching rating is a 399. His left on base percentage is a 98.2. If you look at his strikeout to ball ratio, his strikeout percentage, and his walk percentage, you have a 27.9 strikes to 7% walks, and his home run per 9 is just above north of 1.5 at a 1.69. But then Brandon Finnegan, another guy, a former Royals guy to be exact, his left on base percentage is a 90%, ERA of 1.
But the downside of him, though, in 2 games started, he's only pitched 9 innings.
True, that is true.
So theoretically, he's only giving them 4.5 innings. But in those innings, he has 13 strikeouts.
So I mean, yeah, I was about to say he has a K rate of 34.2, and and also a 2.07 fielding independent pitching rating. But with these guys, they're finally, you're seeing some improvement with their farm system. Of course, probably the greatest name that I've seen this year so far is Rookie Davis. Yes, that is his name. He's one of the starting pitchers, and he just went on the DL today. Actually, I think it was before one of my classes when I got the that notification. But anyway, even though he has a 6.43 ERA, his K rate is still higher than his walk rate. Yeah, he's giving up a bit of home runs with a 2.75.
But in the 7 innings he's pitched, he's let up 6 walks and 7 strikeouts.
Yeah, so he's going almost 1-to-1, essentially.
Yes,
and of course it's going to be more difficult for him in the long run. But I mean, at least it's not Bronson Arroyo. That's just sad.
Which, speaking of, I'm going to run down the ages of the starting rotation for the Reds. Are you ready?
Yes.
It is 34, 24, 24, 25, 40.
Bronson Arroyo is 40. Scott
I
Phillip
just
is 36.
I just found it so odd that it was just middle of the rotation, younger guys,
Mm-hmm.
top and bottom of the rotation, 33 plus old guys.
You got to give them experience. You got to have the experience for that.
Oh yeah, but Bronson Arroyo in 4 innings let up 6 runs and 6 hits. 2 of those were home runs.
So, what can you do? And also, I think I need to do my own research because Fangraphs is really not giving me what I want. But hey, I digress, right? Anyway, so that is the good, the bad, and the surprising portion of the MLBeers podcast. And, we were pretty close to, we had at least one, looking at it, we had one team from each league in it. So, your good and my good, I had an NL team, you had an AL team. We flipped the script with the bad, and then we came together with the surprising. But that's how I saw it. So.
Oh yeah, and since we were covering the AL East today, I didn't want to cover any of those teams within the good, the bad, and the surprising.
That's how I kind of felt it too, in a way. For I'm covering the NL East, and that's how I kind of felt with that too. So, anyway, let's start since we're talking about it. Let's talk about the AL East, shall we? And what was the out of the 5 teams that you had on there, give the good, the bad, and the surprising. You don't have to you can tell me why, but just give me a summary of who, and then we'll go in depth.
The good, the Tampa Bay Rays. Can I do the bad and the surprising as one team?
Why not?
I'm surprised how bad they're doing.
Why not?
The Toronto Blue Jays. Because the other teams, the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Orioles are all doing about average.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not really surprising to me. Surprising me is how bad the Blue Jays are playing right now.
Yeah, and it was not a lovely sight last night at the Rogers Center when they lost to the Milwaukee Brewers.
No. So the way I'm going to run down it is I'm just going to run down it by their standings. So I got it as the Orioles at 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
The Rays at 5-3, the Red Sox 4-3, the Yankees 3-4, and the Blue Jays 1-6.
Okay.
And so I'm going to start with the Orioles, and I'm going to start. How we're going to do it. We're going to run through the best player on the team, of our opinion, and then the worst player on the team.
Okay.
And then we'll go into a little bit of summary about them.
Okay.
So right now with the Orioles, I'm looking at their best player, which is Chris Davis.
Okay.
He has a 333 batting average, 400 on base, 556 slugging, 556 slugging, I'm sorry, and a 956 OPS and a 170 OPS plus. But the problem is, it's Crush Davis, and he only has 1 home run and 2 RBIs. And he's leading the team in strikeouts, which is not surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, they got guys like Wellington Castillo. He's hitting the 353. They got Hyun-Soo Kim batting at 333.
Hey, that's your first time getting an international player's name right. First of all, congratulations. I wish I had the horn sounds. But anyway, keep on going.
Yeah. We'll invest in a soundboard eventually.
Hopefully, yeah.
It'll just be a bell when I say a name right.
Yeah, we'll start a Patreon or whatever they're called, and just our first thing will be, give us enough money so we can buy a soundboard. Or actually a computer first that I can use wherever I want to go, and then soundboards. But anyway, keep on going about about whoever first. The Toronto Blue Jays you want to talk about?
No, Orioles.
Oh,
and,
the O's, yeah.
Seth, they went out and got Seth Smith from the Padres, and he's batting 357.
Mm-hmm.
So they got a bunch of guys that are hitting right now. Even Adam Jones is batting 261. But the downside, the bad players, J.J. Hardy. I talked about how, in our preview of the AL, how J.J. Hardy's going to need to help produce for the
Mm-hmm.
Orioles if they're going to be able to maintain a solid run. And right now he's only batting a 125, 176 on base, 125 slugging, a 301 OPS, and a negative 12 OPS plus. He only has 2 hits
Mm-hmm.
in 21 plate appearances. And Jonathan Scope is pretty much the same thing. Or
Mm-hmm.
Shoop.
Scope. It's Scope. It actually is Scope.
Okay. The CH threw me off. But, in 21 plate appearances, he only has 2 hits as well. So the middle of their infield's not producing, and they are without Chris Tillman.
Mm-hmm.
And, I pulled from an article what Buck Showalter had to say about Chris Tillman. And nearly after a month, he received cortisone injection in his shoulder, and he worked 2 extra innings in extended spring training. Showalter said his velocity is going up. He'll work today there, then they're going to decide where his next 3-inning start is going to be. So hopefully by mid to late May, it looks like the timeline for Chris Tillman to get back into the rotation. But until then, they're going to have to do spot starts.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom of that rotation with Ubaldo Jimenez is always very scary, just because it's Ubaldo Jimenez. And, he has a 10.38 ERA in only 4 innings.
Ooh.
But then you look at the top there, youngest guy on the rotation, Dylan Bundy. In 13 innings, he has a 2.70 ERA and 11 strikeouts and only 11 hits and 4 earned runs.
And he's helping my fantasy team a lot. But that's fantasy baseball. This, that isn't somewhat real, but keep on going.
That's really, if you look at their bullpen as well, this is going to be kind of the basic stuff you're going to hear about every team. Zach Britton, he's pitched 5 innings. He's gotten 3 saves, only allowed 6 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, and let up no earned runs.
Mm-hmm.
But they have Brad Bratch, same thing.
Yeah.
4 innings, no earned runs.
Which happy birthday, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but I did see that he had a birthday today, so happy birthday, Brad Branch.
And then you look at Darren O'Day in just 2.2 innings. He let up 6 hits and 5 earned runs. Mm-hmm. So then Oliver Drake, same situation, 6 hits, 3 earned runs. Then Michael Givens is doing fine. It looks like he had 3.2 innings, 5 hits, and only 1 earned run. So if they can get the bottom 2 of that, I guess, reliever depth of Darren O'Day and Drake together and get Scope and J.J. Hardy to keep hitting, or not keep hitting, to start hitting, it's a very good possibility, especially in the AL East where it's a little bit more open for a wild card spot. I know they'll be battling the Red Sox, but that second spot for a wild card would be very much in reach for them.
Mm-hmm. So my question is...
But
what were you going to say?
Yes. I said, no, that's about all I have to say about the Orioles, but what was your question?
My question is, you bring up all these guys, and J.J. Hardy is the one guy, shortstop, if I'm correct.
Yes.
He's the one guy that's kind of been a glare besides Scope, which he's the second baseman. What would they have to do in order for those guys to start producing? Is it a possibility that they might have to go into AAA in order to get some hits, get some confidence?
Well, I don't think J.J. Hardy can get sent down because he's 34 years old.
Okay.
So at this point, I assume he's out of options.
Okay.
And again, I don't know with Jonathan Scope's options, but he's only 25. So if that's a possibility for them, then yeah, I don't see it as a bad thing.
Okay.
It's just with Hardy, you kind of have to live or die by it. Either you're going to let him keep hitting or keep him in the lineup, or eventually you're going to have to phase them out. And looking at their bench, they have Ryan Flaherty
Mm-hmm.
and Trey Mancini.
Okay.
And Mancini is the only one. He has 12 plate appearances, but 4 strikeouts and a 167 batting average. That's only in 4 games. So just looking at their depth, they might not have anything there. They might not have any other options but to do that.
Okay. So who's the next team in the standings?
The Tampa Bay Rays.
Okay.
And what I got about them is they started the season taking 2 or 3 from the Yankees, then followed that with another good outing, beating up on the Blue Jays and going 3 of 4. But they lost Monday night to the Yankees 1-8. And last time I checked, they're playing game 2 of that series right now.
Okay.
And the good player I looked at them is obviously their pitching. At the top of the rotation, you got Chris Archer, which is always a good thing. He has a 2.45 ERA. He has 13 strikeouts, a 1.58 ERA plus, a 2.01 FIP, and he's striking out 8.09 per 9 innings. So when the top of your rotation, he's 2 for 2. So he's 1-1, but he pitched well enough not to lose the second game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's only let up 12 hits, 4 earned runs. And if you want me to pick a worse player, I picked on Brad Miller.
Okay.
Which I picked on him because he right now is leading the team. He's second in the team with at-bats and plate appearances.
Mm-hmm.
But he only has 5 hits and a 172 batting average and 12 strikeouts, which is second most on the team.
Okay.
So when the guy you have getting the second most plate appearances, who is striking out just under 50% of the time and only batting 172, and then that's your second baseman. Then on the other side of him, you got Tim Beckman with 24 at bats, batting a 125 with 10 strikeouts. And then just to round out the infield at third base, you got Evan Longoria with 35 appearances, 12 strikeouts, and a 241. But the difference is he has 2 home runs and 5 RBIs.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like they're a bit inconsistent in a way.
Yes.
So there's spots of excellence, and then there's spots of sputtering.
And the really bright spot on them is Steven Souza.
Mm-hmm.
He's batting a 370 he has 3 doubles, a home run, 6 RBIs, 6 walks, which is always nice to see. And I guess that is the thing about Brad Miller. His on-base percentage is a 314 because to his 12 strikeouts, he has 6 walks.
Mm-hmm.
And with Souza, he's batting a 370, 485 on-base percentage, 593 slugging, and a 1.077 OPS, and a 220 OPS plus.
Okay.
So that's kind of really to round out the Tampa Bay Rays. They do have one of the favorite guys in my bullpen with his name, Jumbo Diaz.
Yes. He was a Cincinnati Red before.
Yes. It's a fun name to say. But between Alex Coleman, Jumbo Diaz, and Tommy Hunter, those 3 guys haven't let up a run all season. And between the 3 of them, they have 13 innings between the 3 of them. And then they got Danny Farquhar.
Yeah, Farquhar.
Yeah, Farquhar. Okay. He has 3.2 innings and 1 earned run. The bad part of their bullpen is Austin Pruitt, who has 2.1 innings with 9 hits, 7 runs, 5 of those earned, and 1 home run. As a bullpen core, they've only let up 2 home runs and only 3 walks.
And only 2 home runs.
So it looks like as long as they're...
I was going to say 2 home runs in 8 games. That's pretty dang good.
Oh, yeah. And their strikeouts between the 5 guys, 3, 6, 10, 12, 13 strikeouts between 5 of them. So it looks like their back end of their bullpen and even the middle part of their bridging part of their bullpen is doing well. So as long as the starting pitching and the hitting can come around and stay there, but they do have a lineup where they're batting Logan Morrison.
Hey,
But
don't hate on Logan Morrison now. He's a great alumni at Maple Woods Community College. All right, don't hate on Logan Morrison.
he is hitting 333 with 2 home runs.
See?
And they got one, two, they got 3 guys in double-digit home runs. So the Tampa Bay Rays, they're doing well, but I just don't know. Again, they're one of those teams that could be on that fringe of that second spot in the AL East for that wild card spot, as long as the Red Sox don't fall apart.
Which I don't see that happening. But, of course, it's the early part of the season. So I really don't have any questions about the Tampa Bay Rays because usually questions are going to be ending up as the same. And the one thing that I've noticed with what I've heard from you about the Rays is that that things just have to, it's start of the season, small sample size. Things could turn around real quick if things start to persist, correct?
Yes. And, you can say that about every team so far this year.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's going to be the same thing. So who is the next team in the standings? The Chicago Boston Red Sox, I'm guessing?
Yes, I went with the Boston Red Sox.
Okay.
And, right now they just got above that 500 mark, which is nice to see for them because, I picked them to be one of my playoffs teams. So I don't want them to disappoint me. So, it might have the little dude. They might. I brought up that it might be coming off a hangover of no David Ortiz this season.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna have that. I know they picked up Mitch Moreland to play first base. Hanley Ramirez is they're looking to be their full-time DH.
Yes.
So with Ramirez taking over that full-time DH spot, you're gonna look for David Ortiz type production, hopefully out of other players. And right now they're kind of getting that without the home run numbers from Sandy Leon. He's batting 368, a 632 slugging. He has exactly 1,000 OPS, 185 OPS plus, and he is 5 RBIs, 1 home run, 2 doubles. So they're getting that out of a guy who may not have been too expected of.
Mm-hmm.
They picked up they went out and got Mitch Moreland. They went out and Andrew Benintendi.
Yeah.
Did I say that? Did I say that right?
You actually did say that right. High fives.
Oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening today.
Claps all around.
But a guy like that, he's hitting 1 home run, 5 RBIs, but he has a 250 batting average. But Mitch Moreland, on the other hand, has 1 RBI, but batting 321 and leading the team in strikeouts, with Pablo Sandoval, who is batting 120 with 29 plate appearances.
Horrible pickup for the Boston Red Sox, BTW.
And right now, Xander Bogaerts, I think he is just coming off the DL.
Mm-hmm.
So, have him plugged back into the lineup will be interesting to see. And, if Brock Holt could come in, didn't he play third base? Or is he one of those utility guys?
He is more of a utility person, but he did have some time at third base, if I remember correctly. So.
Yeah. So, if they could, and you'd like to see production from Mookie Betts step back up because right now he's batting exactly 200 with only 3 hits through 18 plate appearances.
Mm-hmm.
But, Jackie Bradley Jr. is on the 10-day DL. So they're dealing with a little bit of an injury bug because David Price isn't pitching for him right now either. So it's kind of to be expected that they're kind of coming out the gate a little stale. But, you got Chris Sale at the top of the lineup, top of the rotation, giving you 14 innings, only 2 earned runs, 1 of those home runs, and 17 strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rick Porcello, it looks like he's had a couple bad outings with a 4.38 ERA
Mhm.
And then Stephen Wright, he has a 5.40 ERA. And then Drew Pomeranz has a 1.5 ERA. And then Eduardo Rodriguez has a 7.20 ERA. So if you think about it, if David Price was plugged into that lineup,
Right.
theoretically Rodriguez would be back to the bullpen or AAA,
Mhm.
and you would have Chris Sale, David Price, Rick Porcello, which that top three would be very hard to contend with. But on the plus side, Craig Kimbrell has 3 games. He doesn't have a save yet,
Mhm.
but yes, he does. He has 2 saves. I'm sorry, and he has only let up 1 run, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. And Matt Barnes has a 0 ERA with 4.2 innings and 7 strikeouts. So they got some really bright spots in their bullpen. They got really bright spots in their uh,
Mhm.
starting rotation. And it's as long as their hitting can come back together, like we're going to say over and over again throughout the beginning of the season, until we hit that 41 game mark where we really start to see trends in teams. Right now, it's just small sample sizes, but it's just what we're looking at.
Mhm. And my one question, if you're done saying about the Boston Red Sox, is that do you think that Brock Holt could take over the not second baseman, but third base spot from Pablo Sandoval, or should they try to trade for somebody to get a better third baseman than Sandoval? Because he seems like he's been a liability for the past 2
since
seasons
since
since he,
2015.
yeah, he's been
Uh,
a
you
liability.
I just don't know what third basemen are on the trading market.
Mhm.
Obviously you can look at the Royals. Depending on where they're at by July, there's the Moustakas option. But
Mhm.
you got to think about what the Red Sox gave up to get Chris Sale. So what prospects do they have really to trade to get a above league average third baseman right now?
And
And
that's
what they're
true.
willing to part with, because at the end of the season, baseball, you still got to think about the future. So what are they going to be willing to part with? So they might have to look at internal options rather than going out and trading, since they made that big deal to get Chris Sale and they have
Mhm.
David Price. So maybe they might lean a little bit more on those top 2 guys in the rotation and just hope Brock Holt or Sandoval can hit above 240
Mhm.
and play good defense. So that's kind of where I see that. I really don't see the Red Sox being big buyers at the trade deadline.
Okay. Okay. So, anyway, now you've talked about the Orioles, you've talked about the Tampa Bay Rays, you've talked about the Boston Red Sox, and even though you didn't really talk about Toronto yet, I'm guessing your next team is the New York Yankees.
Yes, talking about the Yankees. And they started the season losing 2 or 3 from the Rays and losing the last game of the series there, and then leading into of the next 2 games against the Orioles with losses. But won game 3 of that series and started their home opener with a win over the Rays. So right now they are sitting at a 3-4 record, just below 500.
Mhm.
And I don't, by this point, I'm just saying it over and over again. Right now, the hitters aren't producing at a high level. Now, the team to get above 500 mark, the bright spots are Starlin Castro, Chase Headley, Jacoby Ellsbury. They're all batting over 300.
Mhm.
Aaron Judge, which we talked about him last season, had a high strikeout rate. He is hitting 261, 2 home runs, and only 6 strikeouts in 25 plate appearances.
Mhm.
So, looking at that,
And also, is it Judge or
is just an
Sanchez that's on the DL at the moment?
Sanchez. He just went on the 10-day DL, and which might be a good thing for him because he was batting a 150 in 21 plate appearances.
But you were going to
And
say
looking at
something
Brett
else.
Gardner, some of
Yeah.
their veteran guy on the lineup, he's leading the team in plate appearances, and he has a batting average of 267. But on top of that, he has 5 stolen bases to lead the team.
Mm-hmm.
So he's producing, he might, he's not hitting for a high 290 or so average, but when he's getting on base, he's creating opportunities for runs to be scored. But
Okay.
the best player I had on the roster right now is a guy they went and got from the Cardinals, Matt Holliday.
Mm-hmm.
He has 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 8 walks, 5 strikeouts, but he's hitting at 364, 533 on base, 591 slugging, 1,124 OPS, and a 228 OPS plus. Yeah. And, I understand, he hasn't played at Yankee Stadium too much yet, but when he's playing over half of his games there, is going to be a good thing for him.
And he is the DH, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I knew that they weren't going to put him in left field, and I think Gardner takes over left field, if I'm correct, too.
Yeah, they have Gardner in left, Judge in right, and they got Greg Bird at first base. He was my worst player I had listed because in 18 plate appearances, he has a .063 batting average and 7 strikeouts and no home runs, no RBIs. And his platoon partner, Chris Carter, is a 154 batting average, 4 strikeouts in 16 plate appearances and only 2 RBIs. And surprisingly, he is tied for the team's lead in triples.
There you go.
So that's really about it for the New York Yankees.
And
They're kind of performing at where I thought they would perform.
Mm-hmm.
Just about 500, not doing anything too spectacular, too terrible, just kind of right there.
Yeah, and that's how I was going to think about the Yankees just this whole year period. And really, I don't have a question about them because they haven't, they've just, like you said, they've just been in the middle of the, just middle of the road at the moment. So I'm not feeling too worried about it. Now, to the worst team of the division, the Toronto Blue Jays, that you thought were just surprisingly bad.
Surprisingly bad. They're coming in at a 1-6 win-loss record. They're 3.5 games back. And if you look at it, they only have one guy batting over 300, and that's Josh Donaldson. And then you turn around and have their everyday starting catcher with 6 games literally batting a 0.
Mm-hmm.
And he has 6 walks, though, so his on-base percentage is a 250.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at their best player, I looked at Josh Donaldson. Obviously, he's batting 348 batting average, 444 on base, 652 slugging, 1,097 OPS, 217 OPS plus, 2 home runs, but with 10 strikeouts, and that being the 10. He's up to 11 now after yesterday, but that's team leading.
Mm-hmm.
The guy right below him with the most strikeouts is Jose Batista, but he's batting a 120 with 1 RBI and 32 plate appearances.
Of course. And I would have been okay as if you said Jose Batista. Because that's what it sounded like. I was like, you're about to say Jose Batista. But Batista. I like Batista because that's how he's because that's how poorly he's playing. He's not Batista, he's Batista.
Put me straight out of freaking Alabama with that accent.
Good old Jose Batista. Anyway, keep on going. We're having too much fun now.
But just looking at their team, their batting average as a whole is terrible. Their team is batting 196.
Mm-hmm.
As a team, their on-base percentage is a 278.
Mm-hmm.
They only have 47 hits, which is for third lowest in the AL. They only have 4 home runs, which is bottom 3.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no stolen bases and 1 caught stealing. So overall, the team is just not I don't know how else to say bad. I can't think of any other synonym to tell them to really describe how bad they're really playing.
Ugly.
Yeah, when you got Francisco Liriano going out there for 1/3 of an inning and giving up 5 earned runs,
Oh lordy.
and at the top of the rotation they got J.A. Happ, which he's pitched 11 innings, but he's let up 7 earned runs, but on top of that he has 17 strikeouts and no walks. So it looks like he's just throwing the ball in the zone, which is a good thing, but the ball is still getting hit around. And then Marco Estrada, same situation, 11 innings, 7 runs, 7 of them earned, but only 9 strikeouts. And Marcus Stroman him and Aaron Sanchez are actually the two bright spots in the lineup. Both of their ERAs are under 1.5. They each got 1 start underneath their belt. They each have only let up 1 run. And Sanchez has 6 strikeouts. Marcus Stroman has 5. So just like their lineup, they got 1 or 2 guys pitching and hitting well, and then the rest of the team just doing terribly.
Just faltering.
And then Robert Osuna, their closer. I know recently he was on the DL. It looks like he's back off of it. But it's the same thing. Each one of their relief pitchers have let up at least 1 run. So it just looks like the whole team is just floundering right now.
Well, I mean, I think that's gonna happen with a Toronto Blue Jays team that is kind of in a mix in a way with with their veteran presence, getting cut down with Encarnacion leaving. Then they don't really have another veteran presence with pitching too, so that's gonna definitely be a difference maker with that team. My question is though,
I was gonna say the guy they went out to theoretically replace Edwin was Kendrys Morales, and he's batting a 286 with only 5 strikeouts, 2 doubles, 1 home run, and second in the team in RBIs.
But he doesn't bring that. I guess I can't remember how old Edwin Encarnacion is. I think he's low 30s, but he brought a exuberant presence to that lineup and to that clubhouse. Because I mean, he does his whole, when he hits a home run, he does the whole parrot thing around the bases and all that stuff.
He brings his parrot with him.
Yeah, you never seen him do his home run celebration?
Yes, I have. It's really annoying.
Yeah, but
I don't like it.
But anyway, it's just like, okay, Kendry Morales can hit the ball, just like Edwin Encarnacion. But Morales doesn't do the flashy things for the clubhouse like Encarnacion did. And
that's kind of how that clubhouse was between him and Batista.
And Donaldson, even though Donaldson seems more of the straight lace type of guy out of the 3. Yes. But with that, it just seems like there's been a loss with that clubhouse, even though they got a guy that doesn't replicate the presence inside the clubhouse, but he can replicate the numbers outside of it. It's just that
he's not going to be a 40+ home run guy, but he's going to hit for a higher average than what Edwin was going to hit for. He's going to hit fewer home runs. But just 2 years ago, when the Royals won the World Series in 2014, Morales had 100+ RBIs and a close, I think he had like a 25, 26 home run season.
See, exactly. So, I mean, you're not going to get the home runs, but you'll definitely get the runs to win games. But it's not seen right here since they're not doing so hot. So, is there anything else to say about this division or the Toronto Blue Jays?
Just look on the AL East to see once David Price returns, to see how the Red Sox either take a hold of the division and start to run away with it, and watch for that second place battle between the Orioles and the Rays for that second wild card spot.
Alrighty, and we will be talking about these teams again in 3 weeks, if I'm correct. Because
Yes.
we'll have to we'll talk about the other divisions, but definitely an interesting insight. And of course, early in the season, let's get through 20 games, 30, definitely 40 games, and definitely see a trend with these teams and see how it goes. Let's get done with a month and a half of baseball, and we might start seeing trends. We might see that the parity or disparity of the division, and of course that means with every division too. So I think that's going to lead us up to our break, Phil. So we're going to take our break. We'll be right back with you on the MLBeers podcast. Hello, everybody. We're back for the MLBeers podcast with your hosts, Andrew Sherman and Phillip Corwin. And if you're not a big guy on baseball or gal on baseball, of course, we talk about the other half of the name beer. So today, Phil, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Mother's Uncanny American Pale Ale.
Delicious
coming in
beer.
at 5.6% alcohol per volume, 35 IBUs, and is best served while taking the ordinary beyond the ordinary, getting back into sword swallowing after a 16-year hiatus, balancing the egg on the equinox, and building your first robot for battle out of the old lawnmower parts, according to the label.
Yes, I do love that. I do love the labels from Mothers after they did their rebranding. And I mean,
very quirky.
Yeah, and I love I've been liking the rebrandings lately from Boulevard and Mothers, but Mothers, they have to be kind of out of the ordinary to be so good, and that Uncanny is so delicious. I wish the one thing I'm disappointed with the Uncanny though is that disappointed with Mothers, not the beer, is that I wish that it was a year-round instead of a seasonal, because that is a delicious beer.
Oh yes, it is. It's very good, and the difference is they call it an American Pale Ale, so you're going to get a little bit more hoppiness from it. Not quite like an IPA, but a nice balance of not so hoppy to hoppy. If lack of better words there.
Yeah, I mean you're getting mostly if I'm correct, it's been a while since I've actually got up on my beer knowledge, but if I'm correct, it usually uses Citra and maybe Centennials, but I could be wrong.
It's what it tastes like, because it has a nice citrus. It has a nice citrus finish to it, and when we say citrus, don't think of a really toned down orange. Like maybe just the smell of it, not the taste of it, but the smell of an orange is kind of what you're getting from a Citra hop.
Like you just grated off some of the skin to get that zest off of an orange. That would be the best way to describe it, because I've always liked Citra. I've always liked Centennial. Of course, my favorite is the Cascade because it's not overpowering, and that's what, in my good old wheat beer that I made, had Cascade hops in it, and it was delicious. Have you ever tried a hop, like a pellet or an actual hop?
Just ate it?
Yeah, just ate it.
No, I've never had the. I've brewed a beers, before and everything, and I've held the hops, I've rubbed them in my hands and smelt it, but I've never been compelled to ingest one.
Well, if you're going to eat a hop, make sure you're eating the leaf one and not the pellets, because the pellets, like they say,
Would
like
make
1
will
ounce
make
of.
me feel like the Easter Bunny.
Well, it's not that. It's just like it's so bitter, and it just you have this long lasting bitter taste in your mouth, and it's like, isn't it supposed to be like 1 ounce of pellet hops is compared to like 10 ounces or something like that, like 12 ounces of just one thing
Oh,
of hops? Isn't that what the comparison is?
I'm not sure on the conversion, but that type of comparison would make sense since theoretically the pellet is just condensed and compacted together, as then just a normal hop bud
Mm-hmm.
is just a little nugget.
Exactly. And I do love my hops, but I need to get back to beer making in the future, which I've had extensive talks with my brother and my uncle about. And actually, and of course I'll talk to you about it, Phil, off pod, but definitely I want to talk about it with the fans and see if anybody would like to, if you haven't tried to make your own beer. I definitely recommend it because it is a wonderful journey that you have to be patient with. And it makes you think how all the beers go into it. And like I brought up with the Uncanny, how it has the Citra and Centennial hops where it makes it a bit hoppier, makes it a bit bitter in a way, but you also have that nice citrus taste, like grating grating for zest off of an orange. My beer that I'm drinking is O'Fallon's STL Red Ale. And my initial thought of it was, okay, I'm going to have a nice red ale. It's going to be, a bit malty. It's not really hoppy in a way because that's not how red ales are. And, to be honest with you, it wasn't something that I'm going to go get again, because even though it's a red ale, even though it does subliminally support my team, it is just not something that I will that I just won't buy again, because I could probably buy a red ale from somewhere else and it will probably be better than this. No offense, O'Fallon, you guys do have great beers, but this one is just not for me. And again, tasting it, it's more of a hoppy, well, not hoppy, but malty notes. You're going to get that somewhat roasted taste off of it and a bit of a bite, but that happens from time to time. So
I don't know when you would like to cover this, but the Royals made their corresponding moves after they sent down Strom and Terrence Gore. So they called up one guy who, whenever he makes his appearance, he'll be making his first major league appearance.
Ooh, that's going to be interesting.
And I just saw the lineup for the day. They got Bryn Moss in left and Alex Gordon in right.
Yeah, I've just got mine too. And Cuthbert at DH. And it looks like for the good old Oakland Athletics, nothing has changed. And if you
it's just interesting because Ned Yost, I guess, is going with a deeper bullpen than bench because they sent down Terrence Gore and Jorge Soler's is not back from the DL yet.
Exactly. So it's going to be a lot of changes with them.
On the bench right now they have Christian Colon and Drew Butera.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I can't even think of who else right now.
But all I know is that if you do have MLB TV, and I know it's going to be possibly late when I say this, the Royals and Athletics game is the game of the day for the MLB TV. So interesting. for them. All right, but anyway, things that deal with our baseball. Game 2 of the MLBeers Historical Showdown, where the fans take on the hosts for bragging rights. And, we chose the 1924 Washington Senators, and I can tell that the dog does not like our pick. Very disappointing with our pick. And you guys chose the 1906 Chicago White Sox. And I thought that was a really interesting pick because, if I remember correctly, we both had, there was 2 Giants picks, which were the 1920s New York Giants and the 2012 San Francisco Giants. And then we had the Detroit Tigers, old Detroit Tigers to be more exact. I think they were more in the 40s, maybe, if I remember correctly. I do not have the poll in front of me, so I could be wrong on that. Anyway, so to the nitty-gritty, who won? The hosts did. I'm not gonna go into. I'm not saying I'm not going into details, nor gonna make it flashy. The hosts won the series. It was a 4-1 series where the Washington Senators beat the Chicago White Sox. Walter Johnson, like I brought up in the video. Let me get my papers here from yesterday, my game notes. On the 1924 Washington Senators that went 92-62 of the season, 4 players went to the Hall of Fame. We had Walter Johnson, pitcher, which he was voted into the original 5 in 1936, voted in by the Baseball Writers Association of America. Then Goose Goslin, outfielder, voted in by the Veterans Committee. He does not look like a goose. He does not look like Goose Goslage. He doesn't have the mustache. And he doesn't look like Ryan Gosling. Then we have outfielder Sam...
Which is unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate, but, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer by Veterans Committee in 68. So you can't beat that. Then you have Sam Rice out in the outfield. He was voted into the Hall of Fame by the Veterans Committee in 63. And then we had second baseman and manager of the Senators, Bucky Harris, voted in by the Veterans Committee in the Hall of Fame in 1975. The career win-loss percentage for Mr. Bucky Harris was underneath 500 at a 489. And this wasn't his only World Series win. He won the World Series with the New York Yankees in 1947, and he was in as a major for 29 years. And the home of the Washington Senators at the time was Griffith Stadium. And for the Chicago White Sox of 1906, they went 93-58. That year, they played against the Chicago Cubs in the World Series, and the Senators, if I remember correctly, they played against the New York Giants. Anyway, about the White Sox, they had two players that went to into the Hall of Fame. George Davis, shortstop, was voted in by the Veterans Committee in 1998, and pitcher Ed Walsh, he went into the Hall of Fame by the Old Timers Committee in 1946. And the Old Timers Committee is kind of the same thing with the Veterans Committee, if I remember correct, through school and what I read from various articles from the Baseball Hall of Fame and Wikipedia. But the Old Timers Committee was more was a mixture of baseball writers and veterans that played, while the Veterans Committee was purely straight veterans of the game that were a part of the Hall of Fame. And it does make a difference because, it started in the Hall of Fame started in 36. This guy was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 46. Our next player and manager. So we had 2 players and managers for this historical showdown. We had Fielder Jones, which he was the outfielder and was manager. This was his only World Series title. He only managed for 10 years and had a win-loss percentage of .667. So, I mean, that's pretty good for them. And remembering from what was going on in the historical showdown, that the Chicago White Sox won one game. They lost. I mean, the series was 4-1, but they won one game where they didn't have a lot of batting. And going through the history, they were not a team that was being able to bat. And they were actually surprised that a team that could not bat got into the World Series and won it. While the Washington Senators was, their pitching greatness. They had Walter Johnson, Nick Alt-Rock, which I will explain something real quick about him. And the one thing about this team was this was the only team that won a World Series won the World Series in Washington, D.C. And I think it shows that, you need a lot of things to happen. Like I said, you have Walter Johnson and Goose Goslin in the mix, and Bucky and Sam Rice, which those guys, Hall of Famers. But Walter Johnson, he won. I think he had 20-plus win seasons over 10 or 15 years. Goose Goslin, he was MVP for one season. He just has done a lot of things. And actually, Goose Goslin was the MVP of the 1924 Senators World Series, and also the MVP of the historical showdown. He went 500 in that in there. He was just really hitting it, and no home runs, because this was early baseball, so we're not expecting a lot of home runs out of these guys. But I will say one thing when I brought up Nick Alt-Rock. Nick Alt-Rock is the only player, as so far right now, where he played on 2 teams on our historical showdown. He was a starting pitcher for the Chicago White Sox, and then was a relief pitcher for the Senators, which he was credited 2 wins in the process. One in relief by the Senators, of course, and one as a starter with the White Sox. And I think he went a complete game in that series. But anyway, just to give you the short version, that's what happened in the Game 2 of the historical showdown, where the fans take on the hosts for bragging rights. And I was pretty happy that we finally got on the board and started to show our dominance for the week. So what do you think about that, Phil?
Well, finally, we get on board. So, we're batting 500 right now, which is a nice thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was cool, using the 1924 Washington Senators and we used the 1906 White Sox, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Just using 2 teams like that, it's fun to see because, obviously nobody theoretically who's alive saw them play live, I guess. I guess you might be able to find some really old grainy tape from the 24 Senators.
Maybe. I think there is a video in the Smithsonian, supposedly, when I was looking up the Senators. But I did not actually check into it, but keep on going.
It's just a cool thing that we're doing with this segment is being able to run 2 teams that would never play each other up against each other to see how things vary in baseball from decade to decade, or even from season to season. So just like we did with the 96 Yankees and the 97 Marlins, which we were almost spot on with the Marlins doing their 20-year anniversary. We were just a week off on that.
Yeah, I actually posted something on our Twitter account that, I said, even though our 97 Marlins did not win the historical showdown, these guys won something big. Hashtag World Series, hashtag MLBHS, which I'm trying to make that as the hashtag for the historical showdown. And I just thought...
Yes. So any of you out there that are tweeting about it or looking at our poll, if you vote in our poll, you could use that hashtag instead of having to send us a direct message or anything, and we could just search that hashtag and see what you voted for.
And I would like to see that hashtag more often. I would like to see everybody participate, even if you are just joking around. You never know if, of course we'll read your tweet like last week, but you never know if we're joking. Like, you never know what prize you could possibly get. If you do, post and you do say who you want in it, then maybe sometime if I ever get my money back, from all the working and bills, just everyday life, you might get that 6-pack out of the blue from us, or you might get some type of, sticker, or we might, send a gift card, or we might do something that might be local to us that is possibly not able to be reached to where your destination is, but we will send you something to your destination. If we get there. That's the thing.
And your team's got to beat ours. So
yeah, and that's the other thing too, which I wasn't expecting a lot out of this 24 Senators team, because they weren't expected. But then looking at the history of the White Sox and them saying, oh, they were like the lowest hitting team to ever make it to the World Series, is like wow, how does that even happen? But and also, quick little fun fact before we go on. The picture that was used in that logo was an actual picture from the World Series game in 1906 against the Cubs at Southside Park. So, just a little interesting fact. So,
that was it for the historical rundown. Be sure to watch our Twitter, as we'll be releasing a new poll this weekend with our team selection and then the 4 possible teams to take on ours. So pay attention, vote in that, use the hashtag, and see if you can win something this next week.
Exactly. And of course, with that, it leads up to the last portion of the MLBeers podcast, and it will be me talking about the NL East division. And, if I had to say who was the good, the bad, and the surprising out of all these teams, I think it would be a bit straightforward.
Oh, hey.
What's up?
Before we move on too far, can we talk about the baseball bat beer?
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot to bring that up. So, do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to talk about it?
Well, you talk about what the Atlanta Braves are doing, and then I'll talk about what happened in 2013.
Okay. This is going to be interesting.
I'll let you know. Yeah.
But anyway, so this week, the Atlanta Braves are going to have their home opener, I believe, today or tomorrow. Anyway, at their home opener, they will have a craft beer by, I don't want to look up the article because it will just take too long, but they will have a craft beer made by a local brewery. And actually, it was made in SunTrust Park. And it is a IPA aged with a baseball bat. That sounds...
And it's by Terrapin Brewing Company down in Georgia.
Yes, that's what it is. And the name of that brew is called Chopsecutioner, which Terrapin Brewing Company, they're known for the Executioner IPA. But I think it's going to be interesting. A little bit too hoppy for me on a hot summer night in Georgia, but that's just me.
Well, this actually isn't the first time baseball bats have been used in the craft beer industry to make a IPA.
Okay.
In 2011, Chris Ray, he was a former pitcher for the Seattle Mariners,
Mm-hmm.
started a project called Hops for Heroes, and he collaborated with nine different, because he was a home brewer, collaborated with nine different breweries
Mm-hmm.
to create what they called the Homefront IPA, which all using the same recipe, complete with orange peel and unfinished Louisville Sluggers towards the end of the fermenting process.
Huh. That is awesome. So you'll have a bit of an
And
ash
the
taste
brewery,
to it.
the breweries, the breweries that participated in it were Cigar City,
Mm-hmm.
Sly Fox, Perennial.